Ladies and gentlemen, drum roll please. We're now getting to that stage of the course where I'm going to present to you the structure or skeleton that underpins all the techniques and processes that you've learned so far on your journey. That's not only here at this live training, but whether you've done the online module with me or previous trainings with me, all the techniques and processes that you've learned here are underpinned by this following very simple 5-step structure. And knowing this 5-step structure is going to hopefully allow you to understand what you've been doing with all these techniques better and provide you with the basic structure which allows you to adapt to those processes, provided they're adapted within and around this basic structure. It will also give you the structure of what is required should you ever want to create your own whole technique or approach. If it follows this, you can rest assured it's going to be an effective process in terms of healing or personal growth and such things. Are you ready for it? We could do it later if you prefer. Or we could just get to it now. I'm very glad to present to you then what is more written out on page 50 of your manual as the meta pattern. So on page 50 of your manual is content that describes the 5 stages of this particular structure. It is sometimes referred to as the mother of all good NLP coaching and ASE patterns. Let me give you a brief description of each of these steps. By the way, this is also something that you can follow that gives you an idea of what to do from the moment the client steps into your consulting room to the moment they leave. Because if you've covered all these bases, you've been thorough. Okay, so here we go. The first step, and this will come as no surprise, will be to associate the client into the present state, which is where you elicit the issue. And here's the good news. The clients come because they are already associated into that issue. So there's very little to do here. However, very often the clients will talk about the problem that was occurring to them prior to coming to your session. Something that happened earlier that day, yesterday, a week ago, a month ago, or a pattern that has existed in their life for a long time. In other words, always in the past tense. So what we want to do to associate them into the presenting problem is to get in touch with the state or that feeling in their body right now through having them describe the issue in present tense terms. How is it affecting them now? How they are experiencing that in their bodies, in their minds, overall, in the present. That makes sense? Okay? So the client first talks about the problem and we help them to articulate that in terms of how it's affecting them now. Very simple. Then we break state, neutralize their minds through encouraging them to think about something completely random and unrelated, or get up and move a little bit, take a couple of deep relaxing breaths just to clear the mind. And then we move to step 2, which is dissociating from the present. Get them out of that yucky feeling. Okay? The break state is essentially doing that. Getting them out of that yucky feeling and eliciting their outcome. Ask them anything along the lines of, so that's how you've been, now how do you want to be different? Or, if you woke up tomorrow morning and that old problem was gone and there was none of it left inside you, how would you be as a person? Or how would you experience yourself? You want to make sure that the outcome is stated in positive terms. and is not still something that is lingering around what they don't want. Because you know that while they're talking about what they don't want, that's what their attention is on, and that's why what they don't want keeps showing up in their life. So here we want them to be talking to us about what they want instead. Okay. Once that's been articulated, we now have their issue and outcome expressed. It's been said. Now we are going to assist the client to access the relevant resource state or states that enable them to experience that outcome. So here you could say, let's just pretend the outcome was more material. It is to have a particular relationship, to be able to afford my dream house or dream car, or take my family on holiday, whatever the case may be. Then the typical type of question around that would be, how will you be as a person, or how will you experience yourself when you've achieved that outer goal? In other words, how do you experience the inner manifestation of that outer goal? Because we want to help them to access the state that is associated with it. Okay? And another approach that we've been covering here is to enable them to open the aperture of their awareness at the stage, and to be able to, from a very expanded and serene state of mind and body, look at their life as a whole. Feeling interconnected, feeling powerful, feeling wise, and all these wonderful things that come from expanding their perception in the way that you've been trained here. So whether you've used the end state energy in terms of how they will be once they've achieved an external goal, or you've expanded their awareness into a sort of interconnected and resourceful state of body-mind. From that step then, we bring it into step 1. We associate the resource state to the present state. So step 4 is the merging of that resource state with the present state. If you're dealing with an issue here, and in HNLP coaching, that's called collapsing an anchor, as we discussed yesterday. So it is, from the overview perspective, looking at the problem with that level of resourcefulness and perception. So the expectation is that either the wonderful end state energy that you've helped your client to establish from how they are experiencing themselves now, or from that broader perception and being very interconnected, in both cases, now it looks at the trigger, or it introduces the trigger of the problem into that state and perception. And the expectation is that suddenly they can deal with the trigger better. And if you've done that one time round, and the trigger is still affecting them negatively, then you just do it again. And you do it again into that broader perception and resourceful state, and introduce the trigger until such time that the resource state has collapsed or neutralized the effect of the trigger. In other words, whatever it was that triggered the problem for them is no longer triggering the problem for them, because they've got a meta-learning, an insight, and a practical way of approaching it that was born out of an expanded state and resourceful feeling. So you go as many times around, so to speak, until the issue is no longer an issue. And then you associate them into that expanded state again, and while they've got that wonderful feeling about themselves and their life, you then go straight to motivating action. The end state energy itself chooses the next smallest step towards the fulfillment of the end state energy. And the end state energy is directly related to the manifestation of the client's desired outcome. So the next step is in the direction of the present state and motivated by the end state. Does that make sense? I would like you to be crystal clear about this. So simple. And I think through giving it a go, you're going to realize, oh, it really is so simple. And you're probably more ready for this than you think you are. Aren't you? That's right.